Whenever you're doing a presentation, you want to focus on the beginning and on the end to really connect with your audience. So I want to give you 6 ways of doing that you probably hadn't thought of. This is a way to grab them really quickly, because I reckon you have about 10 seconds to grab them before they're on their phone, talking to the dog walker or their partner or the hospital or whatever it is that's more important than you. So first, let me tell you what not to do. You really needn't introduce yourself again. They all know who you are. It's on the card, it's on the screen, it's in the Zoom invitation. Everybody knows. It's not where you need to begin. Start right in. And don't try to be funny. Don't try to be funny. Being funny is really hard. Think about it. There aren't that many funny people in the world. If it's not you, don't do it. But what you should do is try to figure out what your strongest qualities are and maximize them. Don't start with a question unless it's a great, provocative, right on topic question. Okay. Starting with a question has almost become a cliche of presentations. If you go to a lot of conferences, as I do, or if you train a lot of people or hear a lot of presentations, you know that the banal question is a real snore. And it's also going to make everybody think this person does not really care about what he or she is presenting. So really, if you're going to have a question, make it a really good one. Let me give you now a few alternatives to starting a presentation in the era of Zoom. How about a surprising or counterintuitive fact? I think that's a really great way to start. Let me give you a few examples. I don't want to alarm anybody on this call, but it's come to my attention that 6 people on this screen are liars. Today, I want to discuss why nobody on this call is going to have a great career. Do you know that more people in the world have access to a mobile phone than a toilet? Did any of those grab your ear? Good. Here's another idea that nobody ever does. Close your eyes and imagine. For obvious reasons, right? Nobody thinks that closing your eyes is a great idea. I happen to think it's a great idea in a Zoom call. It's fresh, and it's just not used that much. Close your eyes and imagine waking up in a 13th century farmhouse in Provence. It's got a stone floor, the fire is roaring, and there's a steaming mug of coffee waiting for you on the table. Personal revelation. Now, personal revelation is important, and it can be really effective, but it really depends on your audience. Here's one example that I really like. I need to make a confession. A little over 20 years ago, I did something that I have regretted every day of my life since. I'm not proud of it. It's something that in many ways I wish I had never done. But right now, I have to talk about it. You can take a poll. This is usually better in a live audience, but again, on Zoom, it's not bad. Do thumbs up, thumbs down. Raise your hand. You know, the one nice thing about doing a poll is that it often gets people off their phone. They have to do something. So raise your hand if you think it's possible to control someone's attention. 6 of you did. Here's something I call the S word, which is surprise. It's really the most overlooked element of every presentation. So many people are so worried about getting the content out or making the sentences right, they forget that surprise is so important. Surprise can come in many forms. You can do the counterintuitive or contradictory fact that we already talked about. You can start in one place and in a completely different place. You can also employ a little theater by using a prop. I'll tell you a story of a client of mine. He invented a very complex medical device. Typically, these devices are the size of a refrigerator. But this one he came up with was this size. It was the size of a Sonos speaker. That was the big reveal. His goal was to raise $500,000 in a first round of funding to a room of venture capitalists at 8 in the morning. So that was not a great setup. He was the first one on stage. So we thought, all right, how are we going to wake up this audience? How are we going to engage them really quickly? What he did is he entered the stage pushing a box the size of a full refrigerator. And he then started talking about all of the engineering feats required by this medical device to solve this very complicated problem. And towards the end, he took an X-Acto knife that he held in his hand. He sliced open the box and then revealed that this was the device. This is what he had managed to get it down to. I'll tell you, that audience gasped, and it was better than a second cup of coffee. He also got that $500,000 really fast, so he was pretty happy about it. I want to talk about your deck. Really, no one wants to spend 1 extra minute on a Zoom call looking at slides that they don't need to see. So if you can cut your slides from 20 to 15, even if you could cut your slides from 20 to 19, your audience is going to really appreciate it. And if you can shave a couple of minutes off that presentation, do it. If you tell your audience you're going to finish early, they're going to love you for it. There was a pitch competition among 10 startups from Germany. Okay, my client had a few really big hurdles. One, her English was terrible. She was not a native speaker, and she wasn't really equipped to be standing on stage. And that made her very nervous. All right, so the combination was very volatile. 3, her product was an online speech therapy program. This was before COVID. So it was a big lift to sort of say, oh yeah, you can really get effective speech therapy online. Most people believed that in-person coaching was the only way to go here. So these were her 3 hurdles. And at first, when we started working together, she was really focused on the AI and the machine learning technology that help people sound and listen to and really correct their speech. But it just wasn't exciting. We all knew it was not exciting. And we also knew that she was speaking to a general audience. So she really needed to grab them. I suggested that we think about emotion. It turns out she has some drawings by people with this particular speech problem. And I want to show them to you now. She asked the audience the question, what is the problem that these people are describing? And if you look at the slides, you can see that the problem was very emotional. It caused a lot of pain to the people making these images. They all shared something in common. They felt imprisoned. They felt trapped. They felt like they were in their own isolated bubbles. It turns out that the condition that they were treating was stuttering. And in the presentation, she showed people who had stuttered and how they managed to overcome it. And it was quick. It was a 3-minute presentation. And she won that pitch contest, even without the benefit of really polished English. And it really made it clear to me that if you can do anything to establish an emotional connection, you can so quickly bring people into your orbit. You really touch them in the heart as well as in their minds. She's now one of the company's lead spokespeople, so it all worked. So the bottom line I just want to share is, don't be afraid to provoke, state an opinion, state a point of view, and make sure the presentation drives your point home. If it's controversial, that's great, and be prepared for pushback. And by the way, pushback is a great sign that your presentation was a success.